Plus, Meghan and Harry's fallout with the Beckhams as Prince William works the food trucks.
4 burgers.
Lovely. Morning, everyone. Nicely cooked, ready to go.
Plus, Christopher Anderson reveals how William and Catherine are bringing up their children a bit differently.
They have to walk this line, William and Kate do, of, protecting the kids' privacy, trying to make sure they grow up as normal as they can, but also giving the British people and the world what is required of them, which is visibility.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and I feel like we're settling into summer mode for the royals. Not too much going on, but definitely some fun news out there.
It was nice to see some of the royals out and about, and we have some really fun stories to get into. It's all a bit lighthearted this time of year for the most part, which I think a lot of people appreciate.
Definitely. All right, well, let's get into the comments like always. One user says, people saying that Us Weekly is biased against Harry and Meghan don't understand that this is how people generally feel about them. They had a huge public support and pissed it all away with terrible career choices. I've never heard of a producer from a reputable and well-connected company like Spotify calling celebrities they work with effing grifters. And the fact that no one at Spotify distanced themselves from it speaks volumes. That is very true. It's like you never hear anybody from these big corporations, big companies being like calling people grifters. It really does say something.
Yeah, it's really, really uncommon for, representatives from a company to make these comments. And that's a really good point that even if you do see these things, usually the company or the organization comes around and says, this doesn't represent our viewpoints, that sort of thing. So that kind of is a really sticky, situation for, I think, Harry and Meghan, that now that we think more about it, those comments were made, which is unusual, but even more unusual that no one sort of, went back and was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, no, totally. Definitely. And then, we were saying, I think last week or the week before that, maybe they should have gotten an Emmy Award because, Netflix, their Netflix documentary was so highly watched. But Brandy says Tiger King was also highly watched. So touche.
Touche. Yeah. What a good point.
What a very good point. And then at Momo says, William and Catherine, I'm glad their father and son are working together, given the fact that the king's reign will be comparatively shorter than Queen Elizabeth's. It will make the transition easier on William and Catherine. It's true. It will be a lot shorter, and it seems like they are working really well together, and it's good to see.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those unfortunate truths that it's just there's no way King Charles will reign for 70 years. Right. It's just impossible. But it is good to see there's clearly a lot of family support, and especially between William and Catherine, really supporting and working together with each other.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to some news. And this was so fun because the Prince of Wales teamed up with the team at Sorted Food, who have over 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube, for their environmentally friendly food solutions and experiments with gadgets to spotlight the work of 3 winners of Williams Earthshot Prize, culminating in the creation of the plant-based Earthshot Burger. So after coming up with this Earthshot Burger, making the burger, they took to a food truck and served up the dish to the surprise of a lot of customers. So take a look at this.
The royal headlines just won't quit, and this week, the drama's off the charts. From Harry and Meghan's rocky image to William flipping burgers in a PR masterstroke, and even a friendship fallout with the Beckhams, let's unpack 10 jaw-dropping royal scandals they'd rather keep buried. First up, the Sussexes. Divorce rumours still swirling. Sure, Harry and Meghan are putting on a united front, but the gossip won't quit, and neither will the headlines. Then came that Spotify bombshell calling them grifters. When a business partner starts slinging shade, it's not just tabloid noise anymore. That's a brand in trouble.
Can I have 4 Earthshot burgers, please, chef?
Wait. Coming right up. Morning, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's Prince William.
I love this. Imagine just turning around and there's Prince William serving you a burger.
I think this is such a creative way for the royal family and their organizations to have embraced the power of social media. 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube. Clearly, those videos are going to be seen by a lot of people, and that gives a great pedestal to show off these organizations. Earthshot is clearly William's big big project right now. There's so much coming up, in terms of his visit to New York, and then later in the year, the Earthshot Awards. I think we're going to see more and more of this ramping up, sort of excitement for the Earthshot Awards. But it's clear just from his enthusiasm, from the creativity in this video, that this is so important to him.
Oh, definitely important. And he poked fun at him losing his hair. And it seemed like he just had a really good time doing this. And like you said, love seeing this. And it's a really fun, unique way to get the word out, get the spotlight out. And hopefully they'll maybe sell those Earthshot burgers in the store. Who knows?
Yeah.
Back it up. All right. Well, Fergie, the Duchess of York, talked about etiquette tricks and tips on her podcast, Tea Talks with the Duchess and Sarah. She told co-host Sarah Thompson that being polite was entrenched in her, and she also wanted to make sure that her children practice good manners, especially given their royal roles. She said, I always say to my girls, when you're out in the public stage, smile. And if you don't want to be polite, don't go out on the public stage, because no one wants to see a grumpy princess. You heard me say that many times. She added, so I think the most important things is you've got to get your game on. That's so true. I mean, like you have to be on when you're out at these public events, because yes, you meet a million people every single year or day, but those people are meeting you for the first time, and that's the memory that they're going to have.
Absolutely. And it is sort of, the moment that they don't smile, or that they do look grumpy, those can be the photos that make the headlines, and then it's taking away from the important cause. And it is a job, and it's strange for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, but part of their job is being polite and pleasant and happy to be there. That's kind of in the job description. And I love these little tidbits that Sarah's giving away. I mean, it's just so interesting to see just that tiny peek behind the scenes.
Definitely. All right. Well, moving on. We have a lot of Harry and Meghan news, just throwing it out there for everybody. But Sentable, the organization that Prince Harry co-founded in 2006 to help children in Africa affected by poverty, inequality, HIV/AIDS, and more, recently COVID-19, announced that the 2023 Sentable ISPS Honda Polo Cup will take place in Singapore on August 12th. So since 2010, the annual Polo Club has raised over $14 million to support the work with children and young people. So Prince Harry said in a statement, the annual Polo Cup is essential to Sentable's vital work, ensuring children and young people are healthy, resilient, and able to thrive. The funds raised this year will support our clubs and camps program, which provides intensive psychosocial support to young people living with HIV. So went on to say that he is delighted to return to the renowned Singapore club in August. So it looks like maybe he's going to be taking a trip to Singapore next week.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. He does usually attend these polo events. It's sort of it's almost like a big draw for donors. We've seen this with Prince William as well, where these charity polo matches tend to become more interesting when there's a prince on the horse, playing. So it is probably very important to Harry to be there. I know that Sentable is tremendously important to him, and his interactions with the organization and sort of his role within that organization is something that's really, really important to him. So I think we might see him popping up in Singapore in the next few weeks. Whether he brings the whole family for a little summer holiday, that would be really interesting to see as well.
Definitely. All right. Well, Prince Harry has a busy couple months coming up because his case against News Group newspapers will go to trial early next year without his phone hacking claims. So London's High Court ruled on July 27th that Harry's lawsuit accusing NGN, which owns The Sun, can move forward. But the judge threw out the phone hacking allegations because they are too old. Now, Harry's legal team previously argued that he couldn't file a phone hacking lawsuit earlier because of this secret agreement between British newspapers and the royal family. Harry claimed that Queen Elizabeth approved of the alleged deal, which would have prevented royal family members from having to go to court for questioning about potentially embarrassing voicemails obtained by reporters.
Prince William, yes, the future king was slinging burgers from a food truck, all part of his Earthshot climate initiative. On the surface, it's wholesome and relatable. Underneath, it's a sharp PR move, drawing a line between William's grounded image and the Sussex's Hollywood chaos. The Cambridge kids. William and Kate are breaking with royal tradition, choosing emotional openness over stiff upper lips. According to royal insiders, it's a subtle rebellion raising the next generation to be more real, less rigid. On her podcast, she dropped a pointed reminder that royals must always smile in public. Innocent, maybe. Or maybe it's shade, aimed squarely across the Atlantic. Fifth shocker. Harry's headed to Singapore for another Centre Bali Polo Cup. Love him or hate him, Harry's charity work has always hit home. It's one of the few things about him that still feels genuine.
NJN, however, denied that any secret agreement existed, and Fancourt said on last week that Harry failed to produce any evidence that could confirm such a deal. The phone hacking claims, meanwhile, fell outside the 6-year limit for legal action. Interesting that he even brought the phone hacking forward if they knew about this expiration date, that the lawyers would even kind of go through with this. But I wonder if it's just proving a point or getting the word out there.
Yeah, even still, to Harry's point, it got the conversation back in the news headlines, reminded people of how, sort of unfairly that a lot of people were treated and how completely, almost corrupt the phone hacking. Those years were terrible in terms of royal news, celebrity news. I mean, it was so invasive and horrible. Maybe even if they knew that it was going to be thrown out, it still sort of undermines the other team, the other case, the other side. And again, just sort of taints the public opinion. Maybe it was sort of an underhanded thing to their legal credit, because obviously Harry has very expensive lawyers on his side. They must have known and said, this is well outside the statute of limitations. But perhaps they said, maybe this would actually give us a little bit of public sympathy in a sense.
Right, definitely. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens early next year. All right, well, let's spill some royalty. And this week's cover story for Us Weekly, insiders are opening up about how Meghan and Harry are putting on a united front during what they are calling a very challenging time for the couple. A source tells us that they've put on a united front and have a us versus them mentality. Now, despite all the scrutiny that they've been under, they've managed not to turn on each other, despite some reports. A source tells us so much of Harry and Meghan's time together has felt like overcoming strife from all sides. They just do it together. They rely on each other for strength and always have. Now, one thing that they won't be doing, we hear, is addressing these divorce rumors because, why would they? A source tells us Harry and Meghan believe that feeding into that false narrative only gives it more attention. Sure, their relationship has challenges, but they are 100% committed to making their marriage work. We've talked about this time and time again. It's kind of hard not to have, I'm sure, strife or challenges in that marriage when so much scrutiny has been pushed upon them, and so many bad career choices in the past few months. It's got to take its toll.
Yeah, I think that there might be some discourse at home, but I think that can be normal for marriage, especially during difficult times, when you think about when a spouse or both spouses are struggling with work or professional issues, which Harry and Meghan are very much sort of going through, very much in the public eye. It might be a tough time, but that doesn't mean they're heading for divorce. The only thing that I think is interesting is that they have such a habit of suing or sending legal letters for stories that aren't true, and we haven't seen that going on at all this time. Maybe they're trying to break that cycle so that they don't have to do it every single time. We have seen it sort of a habit of theirs that if a rumor is really untrue, they send out a nice little note from their lawyer, a nice little cease and desist, and they've just created almost a bad habit. Maybe they're trying to break it, and sounds like that could be the case here. They're just trying to take a step back, deal with things quietly, continue their work with Archwell, with Centre Bali, with the charities that they're working with. Maybe this is a turning point.
No, maybe. And I think I read somewhere that somebody made a good point that maybe this writer's strike is a good time for them to reset too, because nobody can really get out there. Nobody can really work in Hollywood right now. So maybe it's just time to figure out, okay, what do we want to do next? What is our logical next step? Is it more charity work? Is it relaunching the TIG, which a lot of people have been talking about? But it's definitely a pivotal point in their career. So we'll have to wait and see what happens next. I feel like it's a make or break. Whatever they do next is kind of a make or break moment.
100% agree.
Yeah. So moving on. So a lot of people have been noticing that maybe the Sussexes and the Beckhams haven't been spending a lot of time together. Of course, David and Victoria went to their wedding a few years back, but there was a suspicion that the couple may have been leaking some stories about the Sussexes. And that accusation has left David Beckham absolutely bloody furious, a source told the Daily Mail. But it is interesting because David Beckham was, launching the soccer club in Miami. Kim Kardashian was there. The Sussexes weren't. They really haven't been around each other that much. And it seems like there have been some fractured friendships on Meghan and Harry's side. So who knows if there is strife, but a lot of people are kind of noticing that maybe there isn't a friendship anymore.
Yeah, it is interesting. We know that Prince William and David Beckham are particularly friendly, but again, we don't really see them out and about together. And I think these are really unique relationships. These aren't friendships where you tend to get brunch and sit outside on a sunny street corner, in New York, because the paparazzi photos would just be unbelievable. So take these stories with a grain of salt. We really don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They could be having dinner together every Sunday.
That is so true.
It is interesting to sort of hear these strange stories. I think Meghan and Harry and David and Victoria Beckham are both often victims of these rumors or these leaking stories. It must be really hard to find people that you can trust.
100%. Yeah. You never know who is leaking things to the press and who's talking and who's not. All right. Well, let's break down some royal rules. And with Prince George officially 10, we recently sat down with author Christopher Anderson, and he told us how Prince William and Princess Catherine are raising their children a bit differently and what is life like for the Wales family. Take a look. How do you feel like his upbringing is a little bit different than what William has been? And how are they trying to do things a little bit differently with him?
It's different. It's interesting because at 10 years old, William was facing the announcement of the separation of his parents. He had been obviously exposed to the unraveling of their marriage and all the behind the scenes battles and everything else. So different from the life that he has. And, let's face it, George has got loving parents, and they dote on him and the kids. And the funny thing about them, though, is I think the kids, George, Charlotte, and Louis. And by the way, my daughter has a 10-year-old son, a 9-year-old granddaughter named Charlotte, and a little boy who's the same age as Louis. So they're exactly the same ages. So I know what they're going through as parents of 3 kids that close in age. But we've seen more of them in the last, 14 months or something than we ever saw during their entire lives. I mean, there was the Jubilee, then the Queen's funeral, then the coronation. So we've seen a lot of them, and they've held up pretty well. I mean, I think what's going to happen now is, it's just so different from what...
Harry's lawsuit against the UK press over phone hacking thrown out. The case was too old, and insiders say he probably knew it. Was this ever about winning, or just keeping the pot boiling? Seventh Hollywood's cold shoulder. The Sussex's Netflix and Spotify deals have cooled, and Meghan, she's reportedly reviving her old lifestyle blog, The Tig. Is it a brand reboot or a last-ditch play for relevance? 8. The Beckhams' betrayal. Reports say Harry and Meghan accused David and Victoria of leaking stories. David Beckham did not take that well. The friendship? Officially on ice. If you needed a reminder that royal trust is rare, look no further.
William and Harry went through, these are the first kids who are going to be growing up in the age of social media. Yes, the paparazzi are still there, but so are people who have their phones, and can take pictures. And so the intrusions on their privacy are just going to be that much greater. So that they have to walk this line, William and Kate do, of protecting the kids' privacy, trying to make sure they grow up as normal as they can, but also giving the British people and the world what is required of them, which is visibility. I mean, they're the symbols of the British, monarchy, and so it's. I think they're doing a great job. That's why they went to Windsor. I mean, they can be in Kensington Palace or in the middle of London. Obviously, that wasn't going to work. So in Windsor, the kids are all going to the same school. Ladbroke School, which is, it's wonderful to have them all in the same school. Again, I know this because of my grandchildren all going to the same school. And they can have a kind of a hands-on approach as parents, and behind the scenes, just try and give them a great, even keel kind of upbringing.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like they're trying to make it as normal as possible in such an abnormal world? And do they like Windsor? Are they settling in nicely there?
From what I understand, they are. Of course, they're all waiting for Andrew to move out of Royal Lodge, because that's where they really want to be, at the big house, and they'll end up there, I'm sure, eventually. But yeah, they're doing all they can. I mean, and again, they have to think about George's feelings in relation to his siblings. I mean, George has all this pressure. I'm sure at the age of 10, he's well aware of what's down the road. And he has these 2 siblings who can help him, who can ease some of the pressure and share some of the burden. Mm-hmm. by the same token, they don't want to feel sidelined. They don't want to feel invisible in his shadow. They, the royal family does not want another kid writing a book, another edition of Spare, because obviously Harry was very hurt by being in the shadow of his brother. So, yeah, I think they're aware of that, and the family dynamic there is much healthier than it normally would be in a royal family.
Mm-hmm. How do you think George will follow in some of William's footsteps in regards to upbringing, whether it be schooling or things like that?
We already have the public schooling.
Right.
There's talk whether or not he would be in the military. It's always been required of the royal family. Now we have a situation where I'm sure Kate and William will say, you can do what you want. I mean, I would be surprised if they didn't enter the military, because it's appealing, I think, on a certain level. And they'll be surrounded by all the trappings of the military. They'll be familiar with it, and they'll probably want to do some stint. But, Edward famously didn't want to do the big deal that he didn't. He took a lot of heat for that. I think attitudes have changed, so we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that they'll have a lot more freedom in that regard. And, it's just the pressures that were on William and Harry grew so much from the dynamics of their family life. I mean, the fact that Diana was so unhappy and Charles was in love with somebody else. So I think having that removed, mm-hmm. and assuming that the relationship between William and Kate is solid, it seems to be,
mm-hmm.
to make it better.
Yeah. And how would you describe William and George's relationship? Because, Charles, at times probably was a bit distant. They didn't have the best relationship growing up, but it seems like William and George, I know based on what we see, have a nice relationship.
I think so. I mean, there's a lot more affection, visible affection. I mean, Charles was, look at his mother. His mother was cold and aloof. His father was a bully. He did not have good role models. So mm-hmm. even there were times, when Charles would wrestle with the kids on the floor and all that sort of thing, but he was gone a lot. And I think William is aware of that, and that's why he sticks around, and he's a presence in their lives. Yeah,
it seems like they're just trying to be as normal as possible in an abnormal world.
Yes, I can't imagine the pressure to be so normal when you're so not normal.
Totally. All right. Well, moving on. Mark your calendar and get your checkbooks out, because in our Royal History Moment of the Week, Julian's Auctions and Turner Classic Movies announced that the Legends Hollywood and Royalty Auction will be taking place live on September 6th, September 7th, and September 8th in Beverly Hills and online. So the collection of over 1,400 objects, including pieces that belong to Audrey Hepburn, Elizabeth Taylor, and Judy Garland, features 3 garments worn by Princess Diana. So a dress worn by Princess Diana to a gala dinner at the Royal York Hotel in Toronto, and another worn to a private function are by Catherine Walker, a designer who is actually frequently worn by Princess Catherine. And so the other piece is a scarlet silk gown with short sleeves and ruching in the waist and hips by designer Bruce Oldfield. And that was worn in November of 1991 at the premiere of the film Hot Shots. So this is really cool. The dress is expected to fetch between $200,000 and $400,000 at auction. So like I said, get your checkbooks ready.
We we can crowdsource some funding. Yes. We can share it, pass it around. I love these auctions. It's so exciting to see how much money they can still, get at auction. I mean, we're talking $200,000 to $400,000 for a dress that you will probably never wear.
Right.
It's amazing to see these items, sort of in the flesh, so to speak. And I love hearing about these auctions. The clothes are having a second life or a third life at this point. And for the most part, most of the time, the proceeds do go to charity, or a portion of the proceeds go to charity. So there's sort of a good side to this as well.
Definitely a good side. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. A lot of big news, a lot of lighthearted news. I feel like we got a mix of everything this week.
Yes. Yeah. A good mix of stories. Nothing too dramatic, just some enjoyable royal news to get you through the week.
All right. Well, make sure everybody keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you guys.
William and Kate's quiet move to Windsor. This isn't just about real estate. It's about control, privacy, and giving their kids a shot at something resembling normal. It's strategic, and it's setting the tone for the future. The Sussexes are under fire, the Cambridges are playing the long game, and everyone else? Watching for the next move? If you want more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. Because behind every royal headline, there's an even bigger story waiting to be uncovered.